If you're looking to get into slide guitar for that bluesy, gritty sound, then you've definitely got to give open tunings a shot. Players like Sunhouse and Charlie Patton and Mississippi Fred McDowell use them in their playing. But the thing is, playing in open tunings can be a bit confusing at first, and even just retuning the guitar is enough to keep a lot of players from trying slide in the first place. That was me for the longest time. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to tune to two of the most popular open tunings for playing slide. You've probably heard about guitarists playing in open tunings, but what does that actually mean? Standard tuning is great, and it can absolutely be used to play great blues, but when you put a slide on, playing chord shapes that you know from standard tuning can be difficult. Not exactly impossible, but definitely not easy. An open tuning, though, is where you retune your guitar strings to the notes of a specific chord shape, like a G or a D chord, which allows you to play a chord just by strumming across all 6 strings. And with that chord ringing, you can play a cool lick on top. Plus, you can play chords just by barring across all 6 strings, which comes in real handy when you're wearing a piece of metal, glass, ceramic, whatever, that keeps your finger from bending. So now that we know what an open tuning is, let's dive into open G, one of the most popular open tunings for blues. In open G tuning, the strings are tuned from low to high D, G, D, G, B, D, and that forms a G major chord. The 6th string is normally tuned to E in standard tuning, but we're going to drop it down a whole step to D. The 5th string comes down a whole step from A to G. 4th string is the same in standard tuning, that's a D. 3rd string is a G in standard tuning, and we leave it there for open G tuning. Same thing with the 2nd string, B. But the 1st string has to come down a whole step from E to G, and then we get this big open G chord. Open G, G major chord, that makes sense, right? But have you ever heard somebody say Spanish tuning? Spanish tuning gets its name from an old tune called Spanish Fandango that uses the intervals that we actually just put together in this voicing of a G chord. If we start from our 6th string, this would be a 5th above G, right? G, and then A, B, C, D. So there's our D. Then we've got the root, the 5th, the root again, the 3rd, and then the 5th again. So Spanish actually refers to the overall voicing, this particular group of intervals that forms this open G chord, which means that you could play in Spanish tuning in different keys. So we could tune to Spanish in A, and that really just involves tuning everything up a full step, which that puts a little bit of stress and tension on the guitar neck, so a lot of people don't do that. What they do instead is tune to open G, Spanish, and capo up. So in open G, if I capo up to the 2nd fret, then I'm going to raise everything a whole step. Same thing as if we just tuned up, but without putting the stress on the neck, and now we have an open A chord, right? This is actually the same chord that you might be very familiar with in standard tuning. Let's take a look. Whether you're using Spanish in open G or A, we can play some really cool licks and riffs like this. Next up, we have another very popular open tuning for blues and slide guitar, open D. For open D, the tuning is a D, that's down a full step from standard tuning, A, which is the same from standard tuning, D again, same in standard tuning, and then an F sharp for the 3rd string. So that comes down just a half step from the G it's normally tuned to in standard tuning. Then we have an A, which means that the standard tuned B comes down a full step. And then D, same thing. That's for the first string that comes down a full step from E to D. So we get this big open D chord. Kind of like how Spanish tuning refers to the intervals of open G, and therefore we could use it to refer to open A. So you would have Spanish in A, Spanish in A flat, Spanish in G, right? You get the idea. It's bigger than just one particular chord. It's more about how the strings sound relative to each other. We can do the same thing with D. That gives us a root here, a fifth, a root, a third, a fifth, and a root. So that particular order of intervals can be called Vestapol tuning. Now, just like with Spanish, we can capo up from open G to open A. We can do the same thing in Vestapol, but we're moving from open D to, let's say if we go up 2 frets here, we're in open E, which is another popular tuning for playing a slide. So that's a capo on the 2nd fret, and we now have an open E chord. Now let's relate this E chord to an E chord that you're probably familiar with. To me, open D has a very different sound than open G, and it's perfect for a swampy vibe. You can check out my tutorial of Mississippi Fred McDowell's You Gotta Move to learn an excellent tune in open D, but here's a swampy lick just to give you an idea of how it sounds. If you're interested in getting your slide game going, you should definitely check out the Growing Slide Guitar Roadmap inside my BGI. It's perfect for new slide players that need some cool licks and riffs while making sense of open tunings and picking up some solid slide techniques. The roadmap is just one of the roadmaps included in the My BGI membership. So click right here to join and start leveling up your blues skills. I'll see you inside. Until then, practice smart and play on.